It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth, President and founder of Secure Estate Management. Take charge of your financial future with your personal bank. Now, here's Ferenc Toth.
Welcome to Your Personal Bank Show, and I got to tell you what, wow, I've got a lot of stuff to share today. There's been a lot of exciting developments that have occurred in the last couple of weeks, and so I'm going to try to share some of that and, just get a lot of information, kind of a machine gun approach maybe, if you will. Anyway, so the question I get all the time is this: what is your personal bank? Okay, really what your personal bank is it's a concept. It's a financial concept that combines the financial tools from both the banking and the insurance industries to create a positive arbitrage situation even when you access the funds to use for other purposes. So one of the statements I make a lot of the times is, how would you like to earn interest on money you spent? Now, you heard me right. Would you like to earn interest on money that you actually spent on things like, bills? We all have, pretty much all of us have, mortgages or other kinds of ongoing bills that we pay, car payments, whatever that may be. What if you want to pay off some debt? If you have some debt, that's always a smart thing to try to knock that down, obviously. What about investing in other assets? What if you could pick up 2 or 3% on your money while you allocated those dollars for those other purposes? You see, I'm going to go into this further, but I hope you guys got your attention, because one of the things I run into all the time is folks are, overly, I find in most cases, focused on appreciation or growth of their investments. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I'm saying is the focus sometimes is to the exclusion, and maybe that's a better way of putting it, to other factors. See, there's a financial literacy wealth key, and it's pretty simple, and I think a lot of people that listen to this radio show probably understand this. I don't find a lot of people pay a lot of attention to it, but the reality is, how do you build wealth long term? One of my guests, John Burley, he was on in April, he talked about it. He's written a best-selling book and all that. I think he said it very eloquently when he said, he works with many, many millionaires and multimillionaires. He's one of the top real estate investors and teachers literally in the country. And he says, I know of nobody that didn't build their wealth long-term over decades. And the thing is, by putting away a portion of their income over time. And the thing is, by putting money away, okay, you can grow the money, of course. That's important. But also how much goes out. The outflow is many times equally and sometimes more important. And to build wealth long term, really, it's quite simple. Your money has to grow more than you spend it, right? So in other words, you have to have more inflow or more growth than you have outflow. And very little attention a lot of the times is paid to the outflow side, the expense side. And that's where your personal bank, one of the areas where it can really shine. Obviously, it's a great diversification tool. I've shared that many, many times. Right now we have products right now that historically, actually, they're still paying over 6% and have so every year since 1996. And beyond that, actually, we got companies that have never missed dividend payments in over 100 years, some of them even before the Civil War even. So in other words, they pay dividends through periods of time like the Great Depression without missing a beat. And like I said, even today, still paying over 6%. Now, I don't know about you, but in today's environment, with the low interest rate environment we're in, the 6% is a pretty darn good rate, if you know what I'm saying. And so when you also calculate in there that it's tax favored, okay, now you're talking even a bigger benefit. I run into these folks all the time, every day, who, especially after COVID and all the stuff that's happened and the volatility and whatnot, have been looking at, safer money options. Safe money's become very popular recently. I'm sure most people understand that. I have probably never been busier in my career. I've been doing this for over 22 years, and this is certainly one of my busiest times in my career, no question. And people are looking for, that flight to safety. They're looking for an option where they can grow their money with some guarantees, with some downside protection, with some safety. Well, gosh, we can get them 6.1% tax favored right now. That's like I said, that's pretty darn good. The thing is, it even gets better. That's only part of the story. And so, like I said, when I said earlier, how would you like to get paid or earn interest, I should say, on money you spent? I hope I got your attention, because this is something that's not talked about very often. And here's what I mean by it. Again, what is your personal bank? What does it really mean? It's actually a two-step process. The first step is we set up a high cash value policy that's established to maximize cash growth on a tax-deferred basis. Like I said already, we've got contracts that are currently paying over 6% and have every year since 1996. I can send you a spreadsheet, a chart showing all the top dividend payers since 1996. And you can show you the history of which companies have paid solid dividends every year consistently. I hear people talk about looking for interest, earning interest on bonds and dividend-paying stocks. You hear about all those kinds of things, but many times fail to look at this as an option because, well, in most cases I find when I talk to people, they're just not aware of it. Again, many of these companies have been paying these dividends literally, some of them since before the Civil War, and consistently every year, and very quietly just going along and doing that. Hasn't been very well advertised. Is probably, I don't know the best reason why, but they're just consistently, steadily paying dividends every year. So if you're looking for a consistent return with some tax benefits, this is something you should consider. Certainly from a diversification standpoint, it makes a lot of sense too. But anyway, my point is real simple, is these are not the kind of policies that most people are familiar with. See, when we talk about insurance and life insurance and things like that, most people think of that in terms of death benefit protection. And this is one of my biggest challenges. In fact, this is why I do the show. This is why I do webinars and workshops and trainings and meet with clients and really to educate them. It's such a lost knowledge almost. It seems like it's so few people really understand or know that, yes, insurance can be used as a death benefit protection tool, and often is and should be. And I always say, look, if you have a death benefit protection need, as I do, I have a family, I have a business, take care of those needs. And by the way, a lot of those kinds of needs can be taken care of in very inexpensively, as we all know, through term insurance. You can get it online even. It's a very inexpensive method of taking care of those death benefit protection needs. Businesses have them, key person, all those kinds of things. So it's used for very, very many purposes. But what I'm going to say is this. Most people that I talk to, and I deal with this on a daily basis, literally, are almost completely unaware that you can adjust these contracts to maximize cash growth, and the swing, the difference, is significant. Okay? Again, the funds are designed to grow cash, okay? And the liquidity, have high liquidity day one. We have somewhere between 60 to 90% liquid day one if they're structured, depending on the situation, of course, and increasing to 100% liquidity usually within a few years, okay? The thing is, this is designed to build cash, to grow cash on a tax-favored basis. The second step, which we're going to talk about more in the next segment, is we set up a line of credit with a bank using the cash in the policy as collateral. See, the principle of this is really not unlike a HELOC. A lot of people are familiar with those. If you have a HELOC on a property, for example, that's a home equity line of credit, for those of you not aware. It's a way to access funds, backup funds, or use some business people and real estate investors use those actively to build business. But there's no fees. You only get charged interest when you're actually using the funds, okay? So it's a great tool, like I said, as emergency backup. We're using these bank line of credits. We're using the policy as collateral for those, and the interest is much lower in most cases than what you're earning, which creates a positive arbitrage. We're going to talk about that further in the next segment, so stay tuned.
For more information on your personal bank, call Ference at 866-515-6280 or online at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to Your Personal Bank Show with President and Founder of Secure Estate Management, Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. And like I said, we've been talking a little bit about what is your personal bank and positive arbitrage. And again, what your personal bank is really quite simple. It's a financial concept where we're taking strategically integrating a bank product with an insurance tool to create, well, growth on funds, even when you access those funds for other purposes. Now, this gets really, really interesting and really important because we all have expenses pretty much going out. We have regular bills, those kinds of things. What if you could earn interest on that money you spent? What if that interest was 2-3%? Positive arbitrage. I'm going to use an example here in a minute, but I want to finish this thought. Again, the policy that we're using is not like the typical insurance policy most people are familiar with. In fact, very few people that I talk to when I meet with them have ever looked at or seen anything like this. And again, it's designed to maximize cash growth. It happens to be tax favored also, gross tax deferred, and I'm going to show you how to access the funds and tax free. So that's very important. And like I said, the rates, we've got companies right now that are paying over 6% today and have every year. I can show every year since 1996. Show you the charts. And frankly, I've never missed a dividend payment in over 100 years. Some of them even before the Civil War. That's how long these companies have been paying out these dividends on a consistent and regular basis. Now, understand, there's other options I can go with indexing. We have an index option right now where you can fund into the S&P 500, and your returns are going to be somewhere between with a 1% floor to a 14% cap. What does that mean? Each year, you're in the S&P 500, your account's going to grow between 1% and 14%, depending on what the underlying index does. It's pretty much that simple. And so for folks that want to be in an index and want to see some potential growth, but like the idea of having some downside protection, having that floor, that's a great option. And we can do this positive arbitrage with that too. And then again, there's a third option for more, I always call the higher flyers, the folks that really want to see some returns. It's the performance factor, we call it. And there's a performance factor that enhances your returns. Typically, what it is 2.7 times what the underlying index is invested in, or what's credited for, I should say. And really, the thing is this: if your index, typically S&P 500 or international indexes, there's various options. If your index credits 10% that year, for example, you're going to get a 27% return minus a fee. So the fee right now is 7.5. That's to maximize the returns, to enhance the returns, the performance factor, as I said. The reality is, what's happening? That example, you're doubling the index, doubling the return of the S&P 500 index, for example, with a floor. Again, the principal is guaranteed. If the market goes down or the indexes go down, you don't lose. There's still the fee, so your downside floor is 7.5. So as I say to people, look, if you're interested in taking on a little bit more risk, you have the upside potential of literally doubling the returns on the indexes in good market years, and in bad years, your worst case scenario is a negative 7.5. This might be a good fit for you, and we can create the positive arbitrage on that also. So it gets very interesting. So it's twofold here. So one is, yes, it's about there's returns. Do we like the steady, consistent 6+%? Do we want to do an index where we can get 1 to 14 each year, depending on what the S&P does? Do we want an index or a situation where we can double the index returns on good years and have a 7.5% floor on the down years? Okay, any of those work. But then here's the other part of it, is the bank line of credit. So there are a handful of banks out there. I've done a lot of research on this, a lot of due diligence. Those of you who don't know, and you probably hear from the show, I'm chairman of the board of a bank in formation, which means we're trying to start a bank. We had actually hired a bank president, and we're getting ready to submit our application to FDIC in March. And, of course, COVID happened. So it's put everything on hold indefinitely. And so I really needed to research and find some good strategic bank partners, which I have done, thanks to some connections in that area. And so we have banks they'll offer a line of credit based on the cash of the policy, and it can be anywhere from 70, depending on the type, up to 75 to 95% of the cash value. So, for example, if you had $100,000 cash in one of these policies, okay, if you're taking the steady, consistent option, it's going to get credited over 6% currently, and has for every year since 1996 and before. But when you access the funds from the line of credit, this is where it gets interesting. We've got the rates on the current lines of credit on those right now is in 3 to 3.95 range. So in the threes, depending on how much money we're dealing with and which company, okay? So what happens? You put money, you can, if you've got bills and expenses, as most of us do, you can pay those bills or those expenses outright, or you can fund them into one of these policies and then access the funds through the bank line of credit, pay those bills, those expenses, whatever they are, and pick up 2 or 3% interest, positive arbitrage. You see, when I share this with real estate investors in particular, they jump on it and understand it almost immediately in most cases, because real estate investors understand positive arbitrage. They're borrowing funds strategically to make more. So I have fun working with them. I have a number of them as clients, a lot of them, frankly, and a lot of different business owners are familiar with and comfortable with positive arbitrage. Here's the thing with this. The underlying asset has guarantees. It's not going to lose. Like I said, it's principal guaranteed if you're doing the index option. And if you're doing the steady, consistent option, of course, you're earning a interest rate every year. The contractual minimum, by the way, is 4%. So you know you're going to make 4% every year. Now, the companies, I don't even think they've ever paid that low of a rate. Okay. Certainly not in the last 25 years. Okay. And I can show you the documentation if you want to contact us at yourpersonalbank.com. Be happy to send you that information, and we can discuss this further, answer any questions you have. But the thing is, by picking up positive arbitrage or interest on money expenses that you're paying, this can change your financial picture in a very big way. Let me give you a couple of examples that I dealt with just this past week. So one, this gentleman's a consultant for businesses, a very successful consultant and in his field. And as I was talking to him, I said, let me ask you a question. If you were consulting a business and let's say their top line profit was 10%, in other words, that was their profit margin. In your field, would that be a pretty good profit margin? He goes, oh, absolutely. Pretty much any business in my field would be happy with that. I said, okay, excellent. Now, if they've got, like any business, they've got income, they've got expenses. Every individual, individually, we have that too. From a financial standpoint, we're like a business, aren't we? We have income, we have expenses. So I said to this consultant, I said, look, the business can continue to operate as it does with income coming in, paying its bills as they go out, expenses. Or they could flow some of the monies through here, this personal bank, put it in the policy, and then access it through the bank line of credit. Now, in this particular situation, I was showing him where they would earn 6.1 credit, and then access the funds at 3% through the bank line. So the positive arbitrage was 3.1%. This was just this week. I said, if we added 3% profit to the bottom line, or top line profit for this business, would that make a difference? And his response was, oh my God, that would be huge. That would be a 30% increase in profits, top line profits. I think most businesses would be pretty happy with that. And I have a number of businesses that do this and operate this way. I'm going to be able to share you another example I'm going to use with a couple with a mortgage that just refied their mortgage very recently, in fact, yesterday. And I'm going to talk about that in this next segment. What I want you to understand is it's about control of your money, and it's a basic financial literacy key. 2 keys we're dealing with here. One, building long-term financial success, wealth, involves not only how much you earn, but also how much you spend. And you have to have that positive, you have to have more coming in or your money growing more than it goes out over time to build that wealth. That's pretty obvious. But the other financial literacy key that's important here is who's controlling the money. If you pay a bill, if you take money and you pay an expense with those dollars, will you ever earn interest on those dollars ever again? Will they ever grow for you ever again in the future? And the answer, of course, is no. You paid the bill, you paid the expense. That money's gone. It's now in someone else's control, right? Well, again, what if you could use this positive arbitrage and pay that bill, pay that expense, yet pick up 2 or 3% interest? What if you did that on every dollar you spent? How would that change your financial future? We're going to talk about that in the next segment, so stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, call Ference at 866-515-6280 or online at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to Your Personal Bank Show with President and Founder of Secure Estate Management, Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. We've been talking a lot about what your personal bank is and positive arbitrage. And again, if you didn't hear in the previous segments, I'm going to encourage you to go back to yourpersonalbank.com and listen. You can listen to any of the previous shows anytime you want, but check it out. But in a nutshell, really what your personal bank is it's combining two specific financial tools from the banking and the insurance industry to create positive arbitrage or earn interest on money that you used elsewhere, that you spent. You either spent them on bills, you purchase something, or you are investing that money in other assets. So I used the example with last segment with the business consultant, showing where a business could increase their top line profit margin. In many cases, in his example, 20 to 30%. Because if you're adding another 2-3% positive top line profit and your profit is 10%, that's a 20-30% increase. That's very significant. That's huge. Okay. But let's use an individual. I had an individual example literally yesterday. They had refinanced their home. Actually, they signed the documents, closing papers yesterday, and their interest rate, 30-year fixed, was 3.25%. Okay? And I showed them there, and they had some other accounts and some financial accounts that they weren't happy with, and they were a little frustrated about what's going on and some volatility and various other reasons that they just weren't satisfied. And I said, what if we reallocated those dollars? We funded them into the personal bank. And again, in their case, I was able to get them 6.1 crediting. They've been paying that 6 or higher for the last since 1996, okay, and before. This company has actually been paying dividends every year consistently since before the Civil War, okay, so long-term dividend interest crediting, okay? And I said, well, and then we're going to set up a bank line of credit using the cash in that policy as collateral, and the interest rate on the loan on the bank line is 3% currently. So therefore, what's happening is by flowing the dollars into the personal bank, then and earning 6, and then taking them out through the bank line of credit and getting charged 3, they're making a 3.1, and there's 3.1% positive arbitrage. They're earning 3% on the money that they spent they're going to use to pay the mortgage payment. Now, this is what makes it really interesting. As I said earlier, their interest rate on their mortgage was 3.25. They're earning 3.1 on their positive arbitrage on these dollars that we're using through the personal bank. So if you think about it a minute, what is their net effective interest rate on this mortgage now? 0.2%. It's almost free, okay? So you can really reduce the cost of loans and borrowing, like in their example, on long-term borrowing expenses, for example, like on mortgages. This can be applied to any kind of debt. What if you have a student loan? What if you have car payments? What if you have some credit card bills? In other words, the higher the interest charged, the greater the benefit that we can create and offset that and get that paid off. By the way, we also reallocated some of the dollars. They had some credit card debt, and we wiped that out. We're going to wipe that out next month and earn 3% on that money too. So I said, you can keep paying the credit card company double-digit interest if you'd like, okay, and pay this off eventually. Or we can reallocate these dollars, wipe it out, pay them off, and then still pick up 3% interest on it in a positive arbitrage. Again, using the policy and the bank line of credit strategically integrated. That's what your personal bank is about. And this is why I find in the vast majority of cases, I'm able to make a difference and help people financially. Because again, what's the key? What's the bottom line? It's not how much I make, that's part of it, or how much return I get on my investments. That is, again, part of it. But the total picture is how much am I earning or gaining in combination with how much is going out and how much expenses and interest I'm paying and things like that. It's the combination of the inflow and the outflow that builds wealth and changes financial futures. And that's the thing that we look at. Now, of course, can we increase returns? Yes, we have. I mentioned in the last segment, we have index returns, index options where the returns are 1 to 14% currently. In other words, in any given year, depending on what the S&P 500 does, you're going to get 1 to 14% basically returns. Okay, the principal's guaranteed. So on a bad year, you make 1%. In a good year, you can make up to 14. It's that simple, okay? And it's kind of funny. Do some years, does the S&P go up more than 14? Absolutely. But I've been doing this 22 years, and I've yet to get the phone call or contact where somebody was mad at me because the market happened to go up 20% that year, which does happen, and they only made 14 that year. So far, I haven't gotten that phone call. We'll put it that way. But I get a lot of contacts where people are excited about, hey, when markets are going the other way, and they understand they're not going to lose. So again, there's the trade-off, okay? There's no free lunch, folks. I think we all understand that, and I share that with people up front. Is this an option for you? Here's the strengths, here's the limitations, okay? Every financial tool has strengths and limitations, which gets me to my pet peeve. When I talk about insurance and using these tools, it's not uncommon that I hear people mention, they've read or heard or been told negative things. And, you kind of got to get past that a little bit, because here's what I've come to realize. A lot of the source of the negative comments or our information or media or whatever it may be really comes from a place of either lack of understanding or it's a competitor. Let's face it, they're a competitive product, right? And so as a competitor, most folks are not favorable to the competition. Those of you who are baseball fans will understand this. Most people who are baseball fans understand that, New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox fans, not fond of each other. That's a nice way to put it, right? And so if you're going to get advice about how the personal bank tool or the insurance tool works with the bank line of credit and all that, and you're talking to somebody who doesn't really deal with that, they're more focused on managed funds or the markets or other areas, or even real estate or gold or whatever, precious metals, whatever their thing is, doesn't really matter. Cryptocurrencies, all that. If their focus is over there, the analogy is really it's kind of like asking what a Boston Red Sox fan feels about the New York Yankees' chance this next year. You're probably not going to hear a whole lot of positive. You know what I'm trying to say? So what I'm getting at is this is what I do. This is what I've been doing for years and years. I have hundreds and hundreds of clients that actively do this. In fact, we've even set up a private Facebook page where I'm in contact with these folks almost on a daily basis, and there's communication with us on a regular basis. And it's fun. It's a paradigm shift in thinking, no question. Most people are not taught this or think this stuff. Heck, we're not taught this in school. I wasn't. I was fortunate to learn this from some very successful individuals and folk leaders in the industry, and like to think I've become one of those leaders today. But we're in regular communication, so I've got a pulse on this, on how it works for people and how it changes their lives. It really does. Because again, it's not just how much you earn or how much your investment accounts grow. It's also what's the outgo. So what's the inflow and what's the outgo? It's a combination of the two. We got to look at both. And I guess the last thing I would say on this is really for those that are focused in the markets and such, and of course, that's a lot of the audience here on this radio station, and I'm not negative to that. I'm one of those, I'm not going to say this is bad or that product's bad. I already said to you why. It's if somebody says blanket statements, this product's bad or that product's bad, by the way, they're just sharing their personal bias, and it isn't. I don't think it's helpful. And I say this to my agents when I'm training all the time. It's not supposed to be about you and your personal bias. It's supposed to be about the client and their needs and their objectives. So let's share what's important for them. What are their goals? What are they trying to accomplish? And I guess the big thing that I think a lot of people who are market focused do understand is a term called diversification. And to diversify into something that's completely outside of Wall Street and the markets, in a lot of cases, just makes sense. It's wise. It's wise common sense. So it's worth looking at. Stay tuned. In the last segment, I'm going to cover a few more details on this. It's worth looking at.
For more information on your personal bank, call Ference at 866-515-6280 or online at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to Your Personal Bank Show with President and Founder of Secure Estate Management, Ference Toth.
All right, we're rounding third. We've been talking a lot about Your Personal Bank, what it is, how it works, but really what it is, again, one last time, we're using bank products and insurance products to strategically together create positive arbitrage on monies even after we've spent them. And what do we spend them on? Could have been bills, debt, purchasing items, of course, or investing in other assets, okay? And if you missed a lot of it before, I'm going to really encourage you to go back to yourpersonalbank.com, listen to this show and any of the previous shows anytime you want, and get more information on this, or again, contact us at yourpersonalbank.com. Be happy to answer your questions on this. But again, what are we looking at? We have insurance policies that will pay. They're designed to maximize growth. They're not they're not designed to maximize death benefit. They're They're designed. Getting tripped up here. They're designed to maximize cash growth. Okay, and we have companies that have been paying 6% plus every year since 1996 and pay dividends every year, some of them since before the Civil War, okay? These are companies that have been paying dividends for over 100 years. I kind of get a chuckle when people talk about dividend-paying stocks and things like that, and I'm not saying that's bad. Those are bad, don't get me wrong, but they're looking for long-term dividend payers. We look at dividend payers like they've paid for like a century or more, okay? That's the time frames we're looking at. So these are companies that pay, and like I said, they're still currently paying 6+. And we can set it up with a bank line of credit where the collateral for the line is the policy. It doesn't affect your financial debt to income ratios or anything else. If you're doing other financing for investment or business purposes, there's no fees for the loan. You only get charged interest when you actually use the funds, but they're charging 3 to 3.95 depending on how much the amount of funds we're dealing with. And by the way, the amounts aren't that great. I mean, if we were looking at over 60, I think 65,000, we can get you 3%. Okay, today. So if you're earning 6.1, I always tell people, look, if you're earning 6.1, if you leave the money there, you're going to get credited 6.1, right? And 6.1 guaranteed, with guarantees, I should say, the 4% contractual guarantee, just so you know. But if you're getting paid 6.1, they've never paid that I'm aware of. That low, I should say, the 6.1 is what they're paying and have paid, like I said, been paying 6+ over 25 years and intend to continue to do so. Okay, frankly, and you're getting charged 3. Well, let me put it this way. If you leave it there, you're going to make 6, right? You're going to get credited 6. If you access it through the bank line of credit and you're getting charged 3, you're earning 6, you're getting charged 3, what's your money doing? You're still making 3%. And what did you do with that money? Like I said, you could have paid off debt, bills, purchased items, or invested in other assets. I used a couple examples with a business. These are things I've done this week. Used an example with a mortgage for a couple where we just about wiped out their cost of interest for their mortgage. Do you understand on a 30-year fixed mortgage that there's a lot of interest if you pay that out, all that interest over all that time? A lot of interest, okay? You're paying a lot more for it than you actually, the purchase price, of course. It's called compounding, right? The thing is, by pretty much wiping that out, in essence, they're buying the house for pretty close to what they paid for it, not the borrowed cost. Okay, it's significant. The difference is significant. And like I was also mentioning in the last segment, we have index options. Currently 1 to 14% annually. Heck, whatever the S&P 500 does that year, basically, you can get between 1 and 14%. Or we got the performance factor that can double the index returns in good market years and have a downside protection. The worst case scenario is lose 7.5. That's your floor. So various different options, but again, all of these can be then used for collateral, okay, against the line of credit. And if these accounts earn more than 3 and your interest rate on the line of credit is 3, you're ahead of the ballgame, aren't you? And like I said, the fixed, steady, Eddie, consistent is paying 6.1 right now. So you can get a 3% positive arbitrage. This is a great diversification tool because there's guarantees. The principal's guaranteed. There's consistency of returns if you choose the consistent, steady Eddie option, okay, which can offset some of the risk or the risk tolerance that many people have or folks that want to reduce their risk, okay? This is an excellent tool to accomplish that very goal, all right? And then the last thing I mentioned on this, of course, is you can research and look this up. And many of us have been heard about, good and bad about insurance and different things. Again, a lot of that comes from lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, frankly, or competitiveness. You know, I use the analogy. My producer, Jason, got a kick out of my comment about Boston Red Sox fans and New York Yankee fans not liking each other a whole lot. Again, they're competitors, okay? If you ask a competitor what they think of the competition, you might begrudgingly get some positive, but in general, I think most of us understand that the information you're going to get is not going to necessarily be all that positive, okay? I mean, it's just that simple. So if you want to really find out the truth and the information about how it really works, contact us at yourpersonalbank.com. We'll show you the information. We'll share with you. And the vast majority of the time when we sit down and talk to somebody about it, they end up doing it. It just makes logical sense. I'm not going to sit here and try to sell you on it. I'm going to explain it to you, educate you. And my attitude is, we're all big boys and girls. If you see something that benefits you, you're going to be intelligent enough to take advantage of it. My job is just to educate you and help you understand how it works and how it can fit into your overall plan. If you're looking to diversify some, reduce some risk on some of your portfolio, I'm not saying everything, but if you're looking to reduce some risk in some areas, this is worth looking at. If you want to get a nice, steady, consistent return, this is worth looking at. If you want to get some tax benefits, reduce your income taxes or liability and things like that, this is worth looking at. And if you want to reduce the costs of long-term borrowing, things like cars, credit cards, student loans, mortgages, business loans, or anything else like that, this is worth looking at. That's all my point is take a look. Consider it. It just makes sense, okay? And that, so I'm not trying to be, that's all I'm trying to say is take a look at it, consider it, look into it. And it's so funny. So many people won't even look into something because it's something that's maybe different or outside their comfort zone or what they're normally used to. That may very well be the case. But I will say this, we're definitely not in normal times. And this might be the time to consider something maybe that you hadn't considered before. I mean, who would have thunk that in America, not too long ago, you go to a grocery store or any store and you couldn't find toilet paper? I mean, I never thought I would live to see the day. Okay? So, and this whole thing about I never realized or never considered wearing a mask or not wearing a mask would be a political statement. We're living in crazy times. Okay? And having some safety, some stability, and some certainty with at least a portion of your portfolio just makes sense. And if it reduces your costs of borrowing and it increases your cash flow and all those kinds of things, reduces your taxes all at the same time, well, then again, can make even more sense. And that's all I'm trying to say here is I want you to take a look at it. I want you to look into it and consider it for yourself and look at the benefits. Contact us at yourpersonalbank.com. We'll be happy to give you the information, educate you, look at how it could fit your situation, how it could change your financial future, and hopefully we can work together and create something great together. Stay tuned. We're on Money Radio, 1510 AM or 105.3 FM every Tuesday at noon. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Listen next week at noon for more information on Your Personal Bank. Contact Ference at 866-515-6280 or online at yourpersonalbank.com.
This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guests on this program do not engage in rendering legal, accounting, or tax advice. Expert advice from a professional involving your specific situation should be sought, if required. Permanent life insurance is a long-term investment. Products, optional features, and riders may have limitations, restrictions, and additional charges and may not be available in all states. Withdrawals beyond principal may be taxable income. Excessive and unpaid loans may cause the policy to lapse. If a policy lapses, unpaid loans are treated as distributions for tax purposes. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be penalties and surrender charges when replacing coverage. New products may include new surrender charges and contestability period. Policy guarantees are based upon the claims-paying ability of issuing insurance company and do not apply to the investment performance or assets in the underlying variable portfolios. The life insurance and annuity products in this presentation are not FDIC insured, may lose value, and are not bank guaranteed.